Welcome to the Ride With Us podcast, presented by the American Coaster Enthusiasts, the world's largest ride enthusiast organization dedicated to the appreciation, promotion, and preservation of roller coasters around the globe. So please keep your hands and feet inside the podcast at all times as we welcome in your host.
Hello, enthusiasts. It's your host, Jessica Gardner. Today, we're taking a moment to remember and honor Six Flags America, a park that's been a part of Maryland's story and so many of our childhoods for generations. From its early days as the Wild World Safari drive-thru in the 1970s, to its Adventure World years, and finally its transformation into Six Flags America in 1999, this park has evolved, reimagined itself, and created countless memories along the way. But sadly, as of November 2nd, 2025, the gates will close for good. So in this episode, we're looking back at what made this park special, the rides that thrilled us, the charm that kept locals coming back, and the challenges that shaped its journey, while also reflecting on what might come next for the site. Today, you'll hear from ACE's own B. Derek Shaw, Brichette Reid, and Correspondent Bob Randolph, each who have their own personal connection to the park. Whether you grew up visiting or you're just fascinated by how regional parks leave their mark, this episode is your chance to say goodbye together. So, let's roll into the memories.
In May of 2025, Six Flags Entertainment Corporation announced that Six Flags America, dubbed the thrill capital of DC, would be closing for good after this season. Now, we can theorize as to why we're not going to do that. That's just not going to happen here. We are going to talk about all the great memories and things that made Six Flags America special. And before we get to all of that, I want to introduce my guest to you. I am joined by Bree Reid, who is of no stranger to the podcast. Bree, welcome back. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining in. And Derek Shaw, who sits on the ACE History Committee. And Derek, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
So let's start a little bit about each of you. Bree, go ahead and give us just kind of a brief background, if you will, about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Bree. In the coaster world, you may know me as Zero Bree Roll. I do content. I have a YouTube channel, and you might see me on Instagram. And Six Flags America has been my home park since forever. I am a native Washingtonian, so I grew up going to Wild World, Adventure World, and then Six Flags. So, Six Flags America is near and dear to my heart.
Fantastic. And Derek, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of background with yourself, if you would, please.
Well, I joined ACE in 1980 at the Kennywood Convention. I got talked into it by Richard Munch, who sent me information and said, why don't you come to the convention? And I'm from Pittsburgh, so that made a great deal of sense. Got there, got hooked, and been with it ever since. Served as vice president for 2 years from 82 to 84. Ridden about 1,700 roller coasters in 25 countries. And I have been going to Six Flags, or prior to that, Wild World, since about 1985, 84.
So you kind of know your stuff. You've been around a few times. That's good. I like that. That that adds to the podcast. So again, thanks for lending your expertise on this tonight. I'm from Wheeling, West Virginia myself. So it's you and I are from the same neck of the woods, basically. That's my hometown. So I'm very familiar with Kennywood. So let's go a little bit into the history of the park. Now, as I was researching this, something that I didn't know, I didn't realize that a former presidential candidate had anything to do with this park. And I was very shocked when I saw the name Ross Perot show up in the history of the park. So Six Flags America, it started out as a wildlife preserve back in 1971. There were two brothers, Frank and William Stevenson, and they got hooked up with Ross Perot, and they bought 280 acres of land in Maryland. And of course, they had the intention of opening this before 1972. Well, that didn't really materialize. In 1973, the American Broadcasting Company, ABC, that you and I watch all the time, they had a scenic and wildlife attractions division that took over the plans for the park. And in April of that year, they added another 125 acres of land to the park. Now, let's fast forward on to 1974. The wildlife preserve that they had there opened. Expected attendance, 850,000 people a year. That didn't happen. In 1975, the ABC folks, they announced a $30 million amusement park expansion. They wanted to help boost attendance. Those plans got scrapped in 1976, and it was announced at that time that most of the park's 350 animals had already been sold off to various places. They phased out operations and actually had closed down the park. That land was later sold in 1978 to Jim Fowler. Some of you have heard that name before, the host of Wild Kingdom, if you've seen that show. He had intentions of opening the park as a wildlife park, but again, financial reasons kept that from happening. 1980, the park once again sold to another group who invested another $11 million into expanding the park. They did keep the drive-through safari that had been established earlier. They added some flat rides, a couple of kiddie rides, and a carousel. They renamed the park Wild World, and that's really, I think, where we can pick up and start the history that most people know of what became Six Flags America. That happened in 1982. They added some water slides. And then 1983, a couple more flat rides, giant swings, the water slide area got expanded with a full water park, actually, and a large wave pool. So that's really where we can kind of pick up, because I don't know that a lot of people, I didn't know that history. And I find that absolutely fascinating, how the park that started out as a drive-through wildlife safari turns in to a park that we know today. So, Derek, why don't you talk a little bit more about some of that history and how this park became, outside of that, became really what it is today?
Well, I was going down quite a bit. I live in York, Pennsylvania, so I'm about equidistant between there and Knoebels, about an hour 3/4 either way. So I was going down there quite a bit in the 84, 85, 86. And I got to become friends with Mark Mason, third president of the park. And we got to talking about various things. And he said, we need to put a wood roller coaster in here. That would put us on the map. And I said, great, but you don't have to build one. What do you mean I don't have to build one? Well, Knoebels moved one last year. What's Knoebels? It's a park in Elysburg, Pennsylvania. What'd they move? I said, a coaster from San Antonio. They said, we're going to go up check it out. So they went up. Next time I saw them at the park, they said, what is it with this place? There's people waiting in line to ride rides, to buy food, to play games, to go to the bathroom. I said, reputation. That's all it is. But they're in the middle of nowhere, and we're in the middle of a large metropolitan area. Reputation. It's the old, if you build it, they will come, the Field of Dreams type thing.
Sure.
So they contacted Charlie Dinn, who had brought the Phoenix to Knoebels quite successfully, and had said to me, hey, what coasters are available? And I gave him a list of about a half a dozen, including the giant coaster at Paragon Park in Boston, or Nantasket. So for $28,000, they were the winner of the auction and brought the giant coaster to Largo, had Charlie Dinn put it up with his Dinn construction crew, and they really moved pretty fast, because we're talking the auction was in, I believe, in May, and the following May it opened, May 3rd, I believe. So they worked pretty rapid. And that's what got me started with it. When I got there, there wasn't a whole lot there. It was a small park. There was a baseball or softball diamond. You're going up the lift hill on Wild 1, and it was right there for the employees to play when they had time off, or before they started, or after their shift, what have you. Gotham City part in the back was added on much later, and so were some of the other attractions. So it really started out as kind of a tiny park, just kind of growing here and there as they could, and the wood coaster really put them on the map. Part of that advertising impetus that year was wrestler Big John Studd. He did some commercials for them that entire season. He was their opening day, cut the ribbon, and it just propelled them to where they needed to be to get started. So it was that ride that really put them on the map, especially with coaster enthusiasts.
And that was what, around 1986, right?
Yes,
somewhere in
the third of 86. And they also added the Helix that was destroyed in a fire in 63 at Paragon Park. It wasn't exactly the same Helix or exactly the same dimensions, but they brought that feature back, which adds a nice little ending to it, a grand finale, if you will.
Wow. Again, the history of this park, I don't think a lot of people get what it's taken, the path that it's taken to get to where it is today. And that is certainly fascinating. Now, they also added, if I remember the history correct, around that same time, maybe a little bit later, they started to add some other water areas and a lazy river, and then some flat rides. I think there's a log flume in there. And that brings us right up around to about the 92 mark. So in 1992, Wild World was purchased by a company that would later become Premier Parks. And for anybody who has followed the history, you know where Premier Parks led, and that is what's now known as Six Flags, or it was the Six Flags at the time, the Six Flags that we know now after the merger of Cedar Fair and the Six Flags together. It was separate, but the Six Flags that we've all kind of known over the years came in, bought the park, and then they added some other things Premier Parks did. They did Lightning Loops, which was from Six Flags Great Adventure. They also, added a Shipwreck Falls, which was a boat ride. So again, a lot of things got added as Premier came in and started kind of building up the park. But again, I'm still just, when I think back to 1971 and two brothers and a presidential candidate, later presidential candidate, said, let's build a park. and the history and the adventure that it took to get to where it is. Adventure World was actually the name of the park in 1992. We're not even into the whole Six Flags naming convention at this point. In 1995, they added a Vekoma Mind Eraser, and they also added a drop tower, which was made by Intamin. That was added in 97. So again, just as the park aged a little bit, it came up, with additional rides. So, and a lot of those rides still exist to this day.
Yes, they do.
And Bree, I mean, I'm sure you've been on at least one or two of those.
Yes. I remember being young and looking at the bigger rides and being too small to get on, and saying, Mommy, am I tall enough yet? Am I tall enough yet to get on Drop of Doom? That's what I know. It's Voodoo Drop now, but Drop of Doom is the drop tower, the Mind Eraser, and that looking so intimidating, but also so enthralling, and I wanted to get on it. And I'm a small person, like I'm barely 5 feet now, so you can imagine as a youngster how small I was. But looking at the rides, and in the 90s, and just wanting to get to that level where I could get on those more thrilling rides. And Six Flags America, as they were adding those rides, it definitely gave me something to look forward to every year, to like, am I big enough? Am I tall enough to get on this yet? And as soon as I was, that's where my thrill seeking kind of started. But my family, when I was very young, we were a water park family, which a lot of people in this area are. Like, the water park still gets great attendance. I have pictures. I think I have more pictures and can find more pictures at the water park than the dry park from when I was younger, because we had a method. You go and you get your chairs before you reserve your chairs. My mom would sit there and, reserve those chairs while we were in the wave pool. I believe at the time you could have the tubes in the wave pool. It was definitely a fun time in those early 90s, mid 90s at the park.
Well, the park was mainly a water park to start off with. Once kind of the safari stuff went away, it was mainly a water park with a few rides kind of scattered in, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And that's held up with the popularity of the water park. You can tell that it has a deep history in this community.
So let's move on just a little bit as we kind of go through the history here. So 1998, that was really the year that things kind of changed. That's when Premier Parks acquired Six Flags from Time Warner, and therefore the Six Flags property names all became ubiquitous with those properties. They added Roar, a GCI, Woody. Let's see. They also added Gotham City, the DC themed area. And that's kind of where we start to see the shape of what we know now. Is it that time frame where you start to see the park really flesh out and you see it, become the themed areas as opposed to just a conglomeration of rides. And Derek, you can probably kind of speak maybe to a little bit of how some of that took place.
Well, one of the biggest changes when Six Flags came aboard, they added a front main area, Main Street. Prior to that, the entrance was right before the bridge that you walk over, and on the right is Heritage Hall, the restaurant area. But the park was much shorter. They added this beautiful colonial type architecture at the very front, magnificent entranceway, and that just extended the beginning of it. And of course, they moved the parking further back. They have plenty of land to work with. So that just gave it a different feel at that time.
Yeah, because the park itself is actually very, very big. The amount of acres, and I forget what the math is on that, but it's what, like 500 and some acres, if I'm not mistaken. That's a big park.
Yes.
Yeah, total land. I'm not sure they're using quite that much. But ironically, I was talking to someone at this reunion weekend recently who worked at the park in maintenance back in the 90s to early 2000s. And he said that prior, when it was a wildlife preserve, they had infrastructure all the way throughout that entire acreage, water and electricity. So it's there.
Oh, wow.
It's hidden.
Mm.
But I think the
that is
phase is running on maybe 150 acres out of the 500.
That is amazing, especially if there's infrastructure there to think of how big it really could be. And again, we know that land is all going to be redeveloped, unfortunately, at some point. I wonder how much that infrastructure actually played into the decision for that. Again, don't want to go into those speculations necessarily, but it's interesting to kind of think about.
And one caveat that you may not be aware of, it's zoned entertainment. And currently, unless things have changed, the county wants to keep it entertainment. Six Flags wanted to go with residential. So that opens up a whole bunch of possibilities if it's going to remain entertainment designated.
Well, let's hope that it does. Let's hope that they keep a lot of what's already there. Let's hope that maybe somebody comes in and says, I like the way that it is now. I'm going to add other things over here in the entertainment realm and whatever that may be. And fingers crossed on that one. Fingers crossed. So let's talk a little bit about the rides that are there. Let's kind of come back into current times of the park and the rides that are there, because a lot of really good stuff. And Bree, you can speak to the rides that are there. I mean, you're the park expert between the three of us right now.
Oh, I know a lot. I don't know if I'm the expert, but the rides there, if we're talking coasters, we have the Wild One that is still running amazingly. They've taken really good care of the Wild One over the years. It's still it might be someone's top ride there. It could be someone's top 3 ride there. And that speaks a lot to the maintenance team and how they've preserved it over the years. The Mind Eraser is technically still there, but just a couple of seasons ago, it underwent a change. It was sitting dormant for a little bit, but it was rethemed to Professor Screamore's Skywinder. They actually rethemed the whole area, which I believe was Coyote Creek. And now it is, see, my mind is blanking on me. I'm sorry.
Steamtown.
Steamtown, yes. I was thinking steampunk, but I'm like, that's the theme, not the name of it's Steamtown. And they painted it, and they got two new trains from Vekoma with the vest restraints that gives it a nice ride. And they even added Zamperla Nebula's flat ride in that area. They rethemed the bumper cars over there and the Rapids ride, which still has the dinosaurs. So that area looks so good, and that was a revamp from just a couple seasons ago.
Well, it's good to know that, that they did that, even though the park is closing now. So while we're kind of there in this realm, let's talk a little bit about maybe where some of these rides might go, because we know rides move. Rides can be taken down. Rides can be moved to other places. Derek, anywhere that you see that some of these rides could go?
Well, I think a lot of the rides, except for the three big coasters, the two wood ones and Superman, will probably get moved to other Six Flags properties. It would just make sense. The Raging Cajun is an extremely insane wild mouse. One of the parks is definitely going to want that, and why not? It's a great, great ride. If you don't want to get dizzy, you probably don't want to ride that. But the two wood coasters, I'm hoping someone comes and saves them. I was helped save it one time on Wild One. I hope it could be saved a second time. As for Superman, it takes up such a big chunk of land. I'm not sure if there's many parks that have big chunks of land these days like they once did. So I'm told one of the trains has already gone to Darien Lake. So I don't know the fate of that ride, but it was running very well when I was there just a few weeks ago.
So maybe kind of piece parted out to other places that need, backup parts or whatnot, kind of like what we saw happen with Firehawk at Kings Island when those parts got moved to other parks. So, okay. All right. It's always sad to see that happen, but it's just kind of the way that things roll with roller coasters, if you will. Let's talk about Batwing for just a second, because that was the last one. That was the last Flying Dutchman that was out there, and there aren't any others of those. And I've been on my share. I was on Firehawk at Kings Island. I also rode it when it was up at Geauga Lake. So I've been on that one twice, if you want to count those credits separately, which some people do. I wasn't a fan of the model. I'll be honest. Not that I hated the ride. I didn't like the restraint system. That was my biggest complaint about it. But the ride itself, once you were there, was actually a lot of fun. So breathe a little bit of your history with the ride and, what you think, this being the last one that was in existence. Did anybody in the area realize it and take advantage of the time that they had with it?
Batwing was not one of my favorite rides. Yes, it was very intense and I loved it for that. But like you said, with the restraints, that was actually one of my my issues with it, why I didn't ride it more. And I wish I would have. So even now I'm taking this with me. Even a ride that it may not be my favorite, I'm going to try to get as many rides in it as possible, because you just never know in the future. But when Batwing came, it was a little bit after Superman. So they were like, boom, boom, building in that area. And I was really excited to have something that seems so terrifying, where you look down and you have the sensation of flying. I hadn't been on any other flying coasters. I didn't know of any others, for a long time. Actually, I didn't know that there were other ones out there. But it was something that the locals, at least me and my friends, we were all like, okay, we have to ride it. Whatever the scariest ride is in the park, we have to ride it. Superman gave you the height for, the scary factor, but Batwing gave you that thrilling sensation of flying that we just did not experience before that coaster. So as I became more of an enthusiast later in life, and Batwing was, up and down, I missed the fact that I could have been on it longer and had more rides on it, and I didn't. But I was able to get some rides. I believe last season was the last time I was on it, and Still didn't like having to lean backwards. That leaning, but B&M got it right. Like let's tilt them forward. Like leaning backwards, I was like, oh, can we please get to the lift hill? Because that's when you start to straighten up. So I was like, oh,
Right.
okay. If I could just make it to the lift, then I'll be good. But when I was last on it, it was running as I remembered it. So I'm glad I didn't know that was going to be my last ride, but I'm glad that my last ride was a good one that I can actually remember.
And I have to ask, arms out, like Superman style, get the arms out in front. Okay.
Yes, arms out. Sometimes, depending on how my hair is, I'm like getting my hair out my face so I can actually see because it goes all in your face. It was a great ride. It was very unique, and I'm glad that we had a coaster like that in my Six Flags park.
I was going to say I tried to ride it on my last visit, but it hasn't been operating, I don't believe, this entire season.
No.
So I've missed out. It's been a couple years since I've ridden it. But it was a good ride when I rode it.
Now, Derek, I know you sit on the history committee. So what kind of preservation efforts are being made, if you know of any, to save some of these rides and maybe move them to somewhere else, or at least lobby for them to be moved somewhere else, so that way we don't lose this history, especially like this last model of the Flying Dutchman. We know Vecoma's not going to make that again. It's, obviously out of production. What kind of effort is made from an ACE standpoint? And I know sometimes it's probably like, trying to move a boulder up the mountain, but what effort is made to try and save some of this stuff?
Well, it's all about an awareness factor. I mean, we can push the park so far, but they're going to make the decision on what they want to do with it. Case in point, the ZDT Switchback. I saw Rick Knoebel recently. I said, Rick, that'd be a great addition to the park. And his comment was, it looked great in your house, at your place. So, wanted to stay away from it. So, the history committee is working with a variety of things. We're big on the plaques that we put out, the nice bronze plaques. And we're working on Leap the Dips, trying to find a way to keep that alive. If it gets moved, it would lose everything that was grandfathered with the safety regulations. So it's kind of has to stay where it is, and what that formula is, we don't know. But all that we can do is just the contacts we have is just talk to the different parks and let them know what's out there and try to guide them, to consider moving these rides if possible.
Are the parks receptive to these kinds of talks?
Well, I can only speak from back in 1984. Mark Mason and Wild Lyle Walensky at Wild World were quite receptive, and they didn't want to spend all the money on a brand new ride. Today, things might be a little different. Economics is different. So they might say, go away, you're bothering me. But each of the members of the committee have connections, have contacts, and we try to kind of steer the parks in a direction to look at some of these rides when possible. It's no magic formula. It's just a matter of presenting the information and trying to stay on top of it when we can.
Well, I know that we try to preserve, it's one of ACE's directives is to preserve the history of these coasters and make sure that, past rides are remembered for future generations, because we lose something along the way when we get to the bigger and badder rides, if you will. I think the wooden rides, I'm glad to see that they're sort of making a resurgence, whether that be a hybrid RMC or just, from the Gravity Group. If they do something new, some of the stuff that they've come out with has been great. And I know that they're very interested in wooden coasters, and they're very invested with that. And that is very much appreciated. They've done a lot of work at Kings Island to retrack some things like the Beast and the Racers. So it's good to see that there's a lot of groups out there that are trying to preserve some of this, because we don't want to lose that history. We don't want to lose where we were with some of these rides. And you mentioned Knoebel's, and, of course, Knoebel's Saving Phoenix. It rose from the ashes, why it's called Phoenix. So something like that I would like to see perpetuated through the parks. And I know it's probably getting tougher and tougher to do as the parks consolidate if you will, and the companies merge together, it's probably tougher to make that happen. I can only imagine the conversations that happen, to be a fly on the wall in some of those boardrooms.
And part of the whole dynamics is it's the mom and pop parks versus corporate America. When I grew up in Pennsylvania back in the 1980s, when I joined the club, with the exception of Hershey Park and Sesame Place, everything else was mom and pop, owned by a family, owned by a group. It wasn't owned by a corporation at all. So that gives you a whole different dynamic. The corporation has to report to the stockholders. The family reports to themselves. When Knoebels has a board meeting, it's 8 people in the family that meet and make the decisions. When Six Flags has a board meeting, they need to talk to their stockholders, make sure the stockholders are in alignment with what they want to do. So it's a whole different animal.
Well, if Rick Knoebel is listening to this, I've got $5 that I will gladly chip in if we can save Switchback, if that gets the land or whatever it needs. You know what, 10. Let's just make it 10. I'm more than.
I'll match that.
I'll match it too. So we've got 30 now.
That's a bolt. That is a bolt right there. We're already on our way to making this happen. Right. So it's fantastic.
Speaking of preservation, from a very small part, and I have to give Joe Pudlick, who is the PR manager, who just recently left. He's now at the National Harbor Ferris wheel in D.C. as the marketing guy there. But he came up with a set of storyboards, and Bree, I'm not sure if you saw those in Heritage Hall in the restaurant area, that big building. In the very front of it, with a couple of vintage cars, there are also 18 different placards that go through the entire history of the park, from when it was the Wildlife Preserve to Wild World, Adventure World, Six Flags America. Not every year, but sometimes 2 or 3 years in a row. Beautifully done, phenomenal. And I asked him if we could get a set of those for the National Roller Coaster Museum. And I'm happy to say that as of 2 weeks ago, we do have a set of those now. And that is preserving what they came up with. He said, those are too kind of dingy and they're kind of dirty. We'll make you a brand new set. So I applaud his efforts before he left.
That is fantastic.
Yep.
That is fantastic. It's so nice to know that places are willing to do that, to preserve the history. And the folks down at the National Roller Coaster Museum, they're doing a great job as well, trying to preserve all of this history and bring things in, for defunct or past rides that they're discovering, where they can maybe get a car or a plaque or whatever the case may be. So again, fine work done by everybody on that. It's nice to see that the history will be preserved. Bree, why don't you talk a little bit? You said you grew up with this park. I mean, this is your home park. This is your home area. Yes. What does Six Flags America mean to the area? What's the consensus on this? Are people sad that it's going to go away?
The news is definitely, it has spread that it's going away, and people are sad about it, because for a lot of people who aren't into theme parks like us and don't know the specifics and don't know the history of, Six Flags being premier before, everyone doesn't know that. They just know of our Six Flags as being Six Flags, especially if you're my age and you grew up or a little younger, you may only know it as Six Flags. And some people don't even realize that there are other Six Flags out there. So if you talk to someone in the area and you say, oh yeah, have you been to Six Flags? They're going to assume you're talking about Six Flags America, because it is our Six Flags. So the news is definitely spreading, and people are sad because there's a lot of memory there. There's a lot of history there. I can speak for myself. Six Flags is where my mom's company would, they rent it out, have the pavilion in the back, have lunch. You get to go around the park. I'm an only child, so I got to bring a friend or two with me, and she would say, go have fun. And we would let loose and just, respectfully, we were respectful kids, but we would go and we would go ride the rides and come back, check in, go ride more rides. And when it was time to go, we were always sad because it was never enough time. I remember going on one of my first dates. It was Six Flags. My mom was the chaperone. She was like, okay, well, I'll take y'all to Six Flags. And that's where we went on a date. You know, some people go to their local state fairs for their, you know, their date, their sweetheart things. Like Six Flags was that for me. Going there with church, going there with camp. Like it was just always there to where you don't even really think about it because it's just always there. So I think the impact of it being gone, I think the community is really going to feel it because it's one thing to when you lose something that you're like not fond of and like, okay, well it's time to close that. But I think the loss is really going to be felt in the community because we've always kind of had it. So when it's not there, you know, you don't know what you miss until it's gone. You know, you don't really know what you have until it's gone. So I think that there's going to be a greater appreciation for the park after it's gone because some people may not have gone for a few years. We can talk about, you know, how much potential the park has had, but hasn't lived up to it in the most recent years. So, you know, you have people who haven't been in a while, but I think that they're going to miss not having it, you know, around because we've always had it.
It's one of those things. I live in Columbus, Ohio, so I'm very fortunate. I've got Cedar Point about 2.5 hours to the north of me. I've got Kings Island, which is literally an hour and 10 minutes from my garage door to the front gate of Kings Island. So I'm very fortunate that I have that, but not everybody, you know, has that kind of access to parks. And if I go east or west, if I head towards the east, I go a couple hours, I'm at Kennywood, which is where, you know, what Derek knows. And if I go to the west, I can go up into Indiana or I can go down to Holiday World if I so desire. It's not that far away. So I'm in a good place, but where you're at, Bree, not so much. So it's a big loss.
Of it. Yeah, Bob, that's part of it too. Being spoiled, the area being spoiled with having a park so close. I am in DC, right? You know, downtown DC, and it takes about 25, 30 minutes to get to the park for me. So that means it's a lot of people who are within 30-minute drives of the park. You have Baltimore there. It's in between Baltimore and DC, these two huge cities. And now once you take Six Flags America out, my home park will now be Kings Dominion, which technically with no traffic is an hour and 20 from my house, which isn't terrible, but I'm used to 30 minutes if I want to go ride something, you know? So now I'm factoring in gas. I'm factoring in, okay, I can't stay all the way till midnight if I have to drive back. And, you know, I'm getting older. I'm tired. I don't want to drive late at night like that. But 30 minutes compared to an hour and a half. And then depending the traffic on 95 for me, it can be, it's up in the air depending on which direction I'm going. An hour and a half drive can easily be 2.5 hours with the traffic on 95. I didn't have to think about that with Six Flags America because I could take Route 50, get on the Beltway, and then exit on Central Avenue, or I could take the streets. I can go out Benning Road, get East Capitol Street, which turns into Central Avenue, and I'm literally taking city streets to Six Flags. I don't have that anymore, you know, with this. So for me, it's going to be an adjustment, having to drive farther to go to a park when I had one just like right up the street. And I think a lot of people in the area are going to start feeling that too.
Yeah, I lived in Milwaukee for a while, so Six Flags Great America was kind of my home park at that point, and that was a 45-minute trip on interstate for me, which was great with the season pass. I would go down, I had the season parking pass. I was there 5 out of 7 days a week, so I completely understand what you're saying. And Derek, probably with you living in the Pittsburgh area when you did, I mean, Kennywood is accessible from most of Pittsburgh pretty readily.
Absolutely. And growing up, I had 5 parks to go to, not just Kennywood. I had Westview Park. I had a little one out by the airport where they tore it down to build a new ramp to the new airport, White Swan Park. Of course, we had a small one. My first coaster was the Bomber and NAD Junior Coaster at Rainbow Gardens in McKeesport. And then, of course, you go a little further out, there's Idlewild. So I had a lot of parks in my area. All that's left now, of course, is Kennywood, thank God. and Idlewild. Wish the other ones were around, but time marches on.
Well, Idlewild is where I rode my very first roller coaster at. That was, it's a great little park. I remember Idlewild and Storybook Forest. Remember it so well. So let's talk a little bit about some of the rides that we hope maybe get moved to somewhere else. So kind of just a yes or no, and we'll dive a little bit further into it. Raging Cajun. It's already been moved once. Came from Six Flags Great America. And I was on that when it was up there. Do you want to see that moved somewhere else? Derek, yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
Bree?
Yes, that needs to live on somewhere. It is a very, very good spinning wild mouse.
I would ask about Wild One, but I think we can all probably say, yes, we want to see that one saved as well, if at all possible. Superman Ride of Steel. Yes or no, Derek?
Yes, if some park has the amount of land that is required to put it back in the shape, the configuration it's in.
Bree?
Of course, I would want it to, but I don't think it's likely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Let's move on to the Vekoma of Professor Screamore's Skywinder, what used to be and what it is now. Bree, do you want to see that moved?
No.
Fair enough.
No, there are better inverts out there that can be ridden.
And I also think that with the new upgrades to Vekoma and some of the things that they've done with their track, I would agree. I think there are better Vekoma models out there at this point. Derek, your thoughts on that?
I concur with both of you. There's better options out there these days.
Mm-hmm.
How about Jokers at Jinx? Bree, I see the look on your face. Nobody can hear that look, but I saw it.
I would love for it to, but I just don't think it's likely. You know, we have the Flight of Fears. You know, we have Poltergeist. I don't think it's going to be worth the transport and getting it back up. I don't think so.
And of course, we're talking about the Premier Rides version of this. And Derek, your thoughts?
Well, I hated it until they redid the ride restraints. Much, much, much better. So I'm sitting with a hard maybe. Maybe somebody would want to move it, and maybe it'd be worth moving.
All right, Great Chase, the family coaster from Zamperla. Bree, move it or leave it?
Sure, move it. The kids need, their rides. The little ones. That's a lot of kids' first coaster. Let's move it in and give some other kids some joy.
Derek?
It's small and easy to move. Why not?
Absolutely. I'm in complete agreement with you on that. Let's give the kids somewhere. We got to build that love of coasters up. We've got to build that up. All right. The GCI Woody Roar. Derek.
I love the layout. It needs a little TLC these days. Again, I prefer wood. I grew up with wood coasters as from my first coaster when I was 6 years old. So yes, love to see it move somewhere. It needs to be tweaked, but tweaking can be done.
Bree?
I would love to see it moved and RMC'd. If they can't get it back to its original glory as a wooden coaster, because I do prefer Woody's over still. But if they can't restore it to its full glory, then still save it and let's turn it to a hybrid. It's a lot of potential there.
Last but not least, the B&M stand-up coaster. And we know that it was moved. It was once known as Iron Wolf. And matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, it was B&M's very first coaster that they ever put together. Firebird. Derek.
I'm not. If it gets moved, great. If it doesn't, fine too. It doesn't matter to me on that one. I rode it the other day, and it was a little less than stellar.
It was a little less than stellar when I rode it at Great America, if I remember from years ago. Matter of fact, I don't think my ears have quite healed yet. Bree, what do you think?
It's definitely one of those rides where I make sure I take my earrings off before I ride. For nostalgic purposes and for historical purposes, I would love for the first B&M to still be around. And it would be really disheartening if this is the way that we lose the first B&M. So if someone wants it, they're willing to pay for it, sure.
Understood. I think those are all fair and valid arguments for any of those coasters to either be left or to be moved somewhere else, so that way we continue to enjoy those.
Hey, Bob, I want to give a point of information. There are 3 coasters, including Batwing, well, 4 with that are defunct at the park. There was a Shuttle Loop, there was a Cannonball, which is a kiddie ride, there was a Vekoma in Vertigo, and those all were there at various times. Also, and I found this quite fascinating, there was an unknown coaster. It was actually the Ultra Twister that was at Great Adventure and then at Astroworld, laying in the parking lot for 4 years, from 2006 to 2010. So it never got put up. It was just kind of there to hang out, I guess.
And the Ultra Twister was a Togo ride, correct?
Yep.
I have a friend who...
We used to call it Ultra Blister.
I have a friend who worked at the park and they saw it and laying there, and I asked, well, what happened to it? And they were like, well, if you leave anything on the ground too long, it sinks into the ground. So apparently it has sunken into the ground on that land.
That's a shame, because I would like to actually see one of those up and running. They look very interesting, to say the least.
Hey, Bob, another one of the rides that I really like that's there is the Capital Railways train ride. Rarely operates, but I rode it the last time I was there, and it's a delightful ride. I'm a sort of a closet train enthusiast. I mean, it's on rails as well. It doesn't go up and down, but it goes around. And it's just a delightful little ride, taking people to the picnic area and taking them back out. Mm-hmm. But I had a great time on it. And
there's something to be said for train rides. I mean, I love train rides, like the one at Kings Island. I really enjoy. I like that a lot. The one that is at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, that is a fantastic way to spend a little bit of time and just kind of rest and relax and recuperate before you walk around the park again. It's a great ride. So train rides, I think train rides are kind of the unsung heroes of a park, if you will, because again, it's that nice way where you can see everything. You can kind of get some behind the scenes shots or areas where, that you don't normally get to see as you're walking on the pathways. And you just get to rest and relax for a few minutes. And there's not a thing wrong with that, especially after a long day at the park.
Yeah, I took my son on the train, actually, the last time we were there this summer, and that was his first time on the train. So he got to, experience that, and I'm glad we were able to do that together.
Hey, Bree, there's one thing I want to ask you about, because you're more the aficionado of Six Flags America than myself, because it's your neighborhood park. The children's area that they had for a short time behind Joker's Jinx and over
Whistle Stop.
Yes. The train goes right through it. I saw the small train there and I forgot about it, but how long did it last and what happened?
I'm not sure when it opened, but I can tell you the last time that it was in operation was in 2023. I took 2022, I'm sorry. I took my son to Six Flags in August or September of 2022. And that was his first visit. And we rode rides in the Whistle Stop area behind Joker's Jinx. And it had some good rides because he was about 4 or 5 at the time. It had some good rides for his age group. And then after that season, it closed. And I thought it was just undergoing renovations or what have you. And it didn't seem like any work was being done on it. And here we are now, and nothing. Actually, like a season or two ago, you could see them taking apart some of the rides and stuff and leveling some of the area. So the last season for that smaller kids area was 2022.
It was a delightful area. I really liked it.
Yeah, I did too.
Well, as we start to come to the close of this, Bree, what do you have, if any, plans to ride out the park until it officially closes the doors and the locks are gone and the chains up and everything else? Are you going to try to make the most of it over the next couple of weekends that you have available, or are you just going to say, I've done my time and happy trails?
My son has a flag football game, which is conveniently down the road from Six Flags America. And I haven't told him yet, but we're going to go after his football game. We're going to go to the park so he can probably be his final time at the park. But I will be there the last weekend, so November 1st and November 2nd, when everyone is going to be flooding in and coming to town to pay their respects, so to speak, and just be there for the last day, because at least we got a heads up that it was happening, and we didn't go through the whole season and then boom, it closed and it never opens again. At least we have some time to kind of get some closure with it. So I will be there tomorrow, which will be the 18th, for those who are listening in the future. But then I will also be there the final weekend. And like I said, I am a content creator, so I actually am also doing a virtual funeral for the park on my YouTube channel the week after it closes, because I wanted to get kind of like this. I wanted to hear people who grew up with the park. I wanted to give them a chance to speak about the park and have that content live on for people who may not have gotten a chance to visit Six Flags America, or maybe over the years they hadn't heard the best about the park, or heard of a certain reputation about the park. I want a piece of content out there just really talking about the heart of what the park really is and what it means to enthusiasts around the country. So that's what I plan on doing for the closing of the park.
All right, Derek, are you going to try and make your way down there before it shutters the doors?
I will be there for the funeral on the 2nd, but I prefer to call it a celebration of fun, and just go down there and soak it in one more time. One thing I do want to say, there was a reunion for the people that worked at all 4 of the parks, or any one of those iterations, and I was invited to attend, and they gave everyone a plaque that says, "Your legacy lives in these 50 remarkable years, 1974 to 2025. The logos of Wildlife Preserve, Wild World, Adventure World, Six Flags America on Wild One wood mounted on that.
Nice.
I thought it was very cool.
That is very nice. That's an incredible thing to have. Treasure that. Put it up somewhere where everybody can see it. I love when parks do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because then they're trying to preserve at least a little bit of the history of the park itself. So it's a sad thing when a park closes. We never like to say that a park's closing or that a ride's going away. We wish that all of the rides could be around for all time. We don't want anything to go away. As enthusiasts, I know that I don't want to see anything go away, unless, of course, it has tremendous headbang. Then it can just, right. we can do away with it.
Well, Bob, I applaud Six Flags America's efforts, because they told us in May they were closing. Jog Lake never told me. I was there, and the general manager lied to me. I said, "Why are you taking things out?" "Well, we're just switching around infrastructure," and it closed a few weeks later. So we never had a chance to say goodbye to Jog Lake. And some others have happened that way too. But the folks at Six Flags America did the right thing, and they made it, provided an opportunity for people to come one last time. And I applaud them for that.
Absolutely. One last chance to see a park at, unfortunately, I've never been there. I did not have the opportunity to go. And now I wish that I had. I wish I had made plans to go at some point, because, again, we all love our coasters. Wood, steel, doesn't matter. A coaster is a coaster. Want to get that credit, want to get on there, want to experience those different ride elements from different manufacturers in different environments, because they're all, I don't care what anybody says, they are all different depending upon where they are.
Right.
So,
well, Bob, it's a short drive from Columbus. Hop in the car. You got a few more chances.
Yeah, you know what? you never know what might happen. The crazy things happen in my world. I could be there tomorrow. It's hard to say. Oh, again, both of you, thank you, Derek and Bree. I appreciate both of you coming on to share your experiences and your knowledge of the park as we, unfortunately have to say goodbye to Six Flags America at the end of the season. So again, thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much to Bob Randolph, B. Derek Shaw, Brichette Reid, and of course, Six Flags America. And thanks to all of you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and give us 5 stars if you can, rate and review. And if you have any questions, comments, or podcast pitches for us, please reach out to podcast@aceonline.org. Don't forget to check the website, ridewithace.com. And remember that ACE is everywhere you consume your social media. And if you haven't joined ACE yet, what are you waiting for? Thanks for listening. Hope you get to ride a coaster today.
Ride With Us is produced by the American Coaster Enthusiasts, a registered 501c3 organization. Visit ridewithace.com for additional information, and we will see you at the parks.